And we have 12 attendees with us so far tonight. I'd like to welcome them to our meeting. And my computer says it's 7 o'clock, so I'll call this meeting to order. And the first order of business is the pledge to the flag. So I will mute everyone and ask that everyone join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now I will unmute everyone. And before we get on with our regular business meeting, we have a guest with us tonight. Paul Von Schenk is our insurance rep from Amsure, and the board has received, excuse me, from him summary and recommendations for our insurance coverage for next year. I'd like to thank Christine for her work in facilitating all of this. We appreciate that effort very much. And thank Paul for being here with us tonight, and turn the meeting over to him for a brief presentation.
Wonderful. Thank you, Larry, and thank you to all of the village trustees for having me tonight and for putting me at the front of the meeting. I very much appreciate that. And as Larry mentioned, we have a renewal in place, a recommended renewal for the health insurance for the village of Ballston Spa, and its active employees and retirees as well for the 2021 plan year. The village is on a January 1st effective date, so it renews January 1st and extends through December 31st. And just quickly by way of background, as Larry mentioned, I'm with Amsure. My name is Paul Von Schenk. Amsure is the wholly owned insurance subsidiary of the Adirondack Trust Company, which is a community bank in Saratoga Springs. And I work out of our Saratoga Springs office, so I'm right around the corner from the village and passing through there quite a bit, and work regularly with Christine and Terry and Julia as well on health insurance related matters. So getting down to specifics around what the 2021 renewal looks like, just in terms of general market trends, we talk a lot in our business about medical and prescription drug trend. And that trend over the last however many years, call it 10 plus, has been nothing but up. And it's a combination of forces. A lot of what's driven that in recent years is prescription drug pricing. And so composite trend between medical and prescription drug has been in the high single digits range. And last year's renewal reflected that. It was about an 8.5% renewal for the village for its in-force plan. This year, the trend has actually come down a little bit. It's not a decrease, but it's tapered off from what we've seen in terms of those high single digits. And it's more in line with a 6 to 8% composite trend. And so for the village in 2021, the in-force plan with Empire came in at a 6.22% increase, which again is on the lower end of what we're seeing, which is 6 to 8% composite. And what that equates to in dollars is about a $30,000 annual increase in premium dollars that in aggregate the village is responsible for. Now, a portion of that is shared with the employees. So the village does not pay in all cases of 100% of the health insurance premium. But in terms of total aggregate premium, that 6.22% increase represents $30,000, give or take, in total additional premium. And just for reference as well, the total expenditure for the village projected for 2021, based on 31 contracts, you have 31 employees, active employees that participate in the health plan, that accounts for $538,000 roughly in annual health insurance premiums. So that is a significant nut. I know it's a major line item for the village, and it's something that we obviously keep front of mind in our renewal discussions, knowing that it is such a significant line item for the village. And I'll get into just briefly some things that we talked about in terms of how we can combat this in the future. But just to back up why that number is so significant, is to also point out how coverage rich the plan is for the village. It's a gold level plan, which if you look at the metal tiers in the small group market, anything less than 100 employees, you start at the platinum level, which very few employers offer. And then gold level is where pretty much all of the public entity, municipal employers, school districts, et cetera, reside with their benefit. And it goes on down from there, silver, bronze, et cetera. So gold level is an exceptionally coverage rich benefit level. And in addition, it's an EPO plan, an exclusive provider organization, meaning that the network expands not just to local providers, but also nationally through Empire's Blue Card. And so if an employee of the village wanted to see a cancer specialist at Sloan Kettering or Dana-Farber, that is considered in-network coverage. And so it's a very robust coverage network, combined with the fact that it's a gold level plan, meaning it's co-pays instead of deductibles, and no co-insurance as well, which is another significant feature of the plan. And not only that, there were actually some enhancements in the plan for the renewal. For instance, the outpatient hospital deductible decreased, the copay, I should say, decreased, as well as the prescription drug copays for tier 2 and 3 drugs. So there were some coverage enhancements that Empire embedded in this year's plan. There was one drawback from a coverage standpoint. The emergency room copay did increase by $250, which is a trend we're seeing with a lot of carriers to try and drive people to urgent cares as opposed to ERs. And they're doing that through that cost share structure. So in all, we view it as a very favorable coverage renewal. You keep the same coverage rich plan. We know that a $30,000 increase is nothing to take lightly. And so in terms of some other good news that helps offset that and things to consider down the road, the village also offers health insurance to its retirees. And that is accomplished through a Medicare Advantage plan. And in order to qualify for a Medicare Advantage plan, a few things have to be met. One, the retiree has to be retired, so you can't be actively working for the village. And 2, you have to be 65 plus, so you have to be Medicare eligible. And then 3, you have to secure Medicare Part A and Part B coverage. And so when those 3 criteria are met, you're eligible for Medicare Advantage plan. And several of the retirees of the village are on that plan. And the premiums are quite a bit lower because the government shares in the cost of those plans. So there's a cost share with the insurance carrier. And for 2021, that premium is actually going down a few percentage points, which is on top of a decrease from last year as well. MVP is the carrier on that plan. And so there's some cost savings that are occurring on the retiree side, which is helping to offset some of the increases on the active employee side. But in aggregate, we view this again as on the low end of trend. The Empire plan has worked very well for the village and its employees, and it satisfies both the collectively bargained responsibilities of the union-based employees as well as the non-union employees, and offers the ease and efficiency of one plan, one carrier, both from an enrollment and a billing standpoint. So I'm happy to take any questions that folks might have. I know I promised to keep it under 15 minutes and my goal was really closer to 10 because I know you probably have a lot to cover today. But the good news is Empire is not changing its plan, and the employees and the retirees will continue to enjoy the same coverage that they have today.
Thank you for that summary, Paul. That was very concise and complete, and we appreciate it.
Sure.
I assume we need to adopt this plan at our next meeting in December in order for it to take effect on January 1st.
Yes, I think Christine's talking, but she might be on mute, or her maybe I hijacked her account. That's probably the challenge. So once I leave, she'll be able to talk. But we would recommend that from a timing standpoint, and in terms of ID cards and getting the renewal instructions to Empire, early mid-December is more than adequate from AmSure's standpoint. So we certainly have time, a little bit of time on our side for you all to formally approve that motion.
Okay, thanks. Any other questions from any of the trustees? Hearing none. Paul, thank you very much for being with us tonight. You're certainly welcome to stick around for the rest of the meeting, but I suspect you might have other things on your mind.
Well, I have a few kids to put to bed, so I'll go take care of that. But thank you everyone for the time. I really appreciate it, and for the village's continued partnership. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you.
Christine, did that help your situation with your audio? No, it didn't. We can't hear you.
You might have to log out and back in now that he's left.
All right, well, hopefully she can get that straightened out. Moving on with our agenda. Are there any corrections or additions to the minutes of our November 9th meeting? Hearing none, could I have a motion that they be approved as written?
So moved.
Motion by trustee Raymond. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by trustee Cormos. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. Minutes are approved.
Barry, just note that I'm not voting.
Oh, you abstained?
Well, I wasn't at the last meeting.
Okay. Did the clerk get that note?
Yes.
Okay. Next on the agenda is mayor announcements. I wanted to update you on a couple of things. Number one, at our last meeting, we approved putting up a fence around Ricketts for safety concerns. The materials have been ordered, the contract has been issued, and we expect the construction to start on December 7th. So that project is in the works. Some people noticed that the public library was closed last Thursday. I wanted to give you an update on that situation. A family member, not a staff member, but a family member of a staff member at the library is exhibiting COVID-like symptoms. And so out of an abundance of caution, we closed the library on Thursday. We did a deep clean on Thursday. The employee's family member also got the results of 2 COVID tests back on Thursday, and they were both negative. So based on having done the deep cleaning and the negative tests for the employee's family member, we reopened the library on its regular schedule on Friday. So I think what that shows is that we do have a system in place for dealing with stuff like this, and it is effective, and it was used effectively in this situation. So I was pleased all the way around with the way that went. As the board knows, I have been lobbying the county to make our parking arrangement permanent. They agreed to a temporary arrangement allowing us to use the 2 county lots on West High Street for public parking during that period of time when we had Front Street closed down for the restaurants. That worked really well. It provides good overflow parking for village residents. And I have been asking the county board to make that arrangement permanent for at least a couple of months now. I was going to announce tonight that the Buildings and Grounds Committee of the county had made a positive recommendation to the County Board of Supervisors to continue that arrangement. And then on Tuesday, I got word that the County Board of Supervisors had in fact voted to approve that. So we will have public parking in the 2 county lots on West High Street from 5 to 11 p.m. on weeknights, I mean, and 8 a.m. to 11 p.m. on weekends. And that is a 1-year agreement simply because the county didn't want to do it for more than a year at a time. But there's no reason to suspect that it won't be renewed. And that agreement is later on in tonight's agenda. So I'm very happy to make that announcement. One other thing you might be interested in, at our last meeting, we approved the old Eagle Matley rescue truck to be sold at auction. That auction has occurred and the truck brought $4,450. So that's a nice bonus. And finally, our next meeting is December 14th, and we did not schedule a second meeting in December as last year. The second meeting fell in Christmas week, so we didn't schedule a meeting. And as we did last year, I just want to alert the board that if essential expenditures come in, bills that have to be paid that are too late for the December 14th agenda and have to be paid before our next meeting, which will be January 11th, I will go ahead and approve those on an emergency basis. They will show up on the abstract on the January 11th meeting, so you'll see that they've been paid, but they will not be on the consent agenda because they will have been pre-approved. So I just wanted to make sure everybody was aware of that. And that's it for mayor announcements tonight. We have no old business on the agenda, so I'll move on to new business.
Larry?
Yes,
Is Christine trying to, oh, there she is. Sorry. I thought she was trying to maybe get in.
it says on my screen that she's connecting to audio.
Yeah, no, she's in. She's getting in now.
Well, I see the video, but we don't hear her yet. Next item of business tonight is the budget transfers, which we have every meeting. Could I have a motion to approve the budget transfers?
So moved.
Motion by trustee Shaw. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by trustee Raymond. Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Budget transfers are approved. The next item of new business is agreements between the village and the Ballston area senior citizens, the American Legion, and the Ballston Spa Elks Club. These organizations all provide programming for village residents, and in return for that, we support them either financially or by helping them with their winter plowing. And we have to formalize that in the form of contracts in order to make it all legal and above board. And these three contracts managed to get left out when we did the batch that we did early in the year. I would note that trustee Fitzpatrick, who shows up as having audio now.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yay.
All right. I would note that trustee Fitzpatrick caught an error in the address of all three organizations. So I will correct those addresses before these contracts go out. And having said that, could I have a motion that these three contracts be approved?
I'll make that motion.
Motion by trustee Cormos. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by trustee Shaw. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed, nay. Those contracts are approved. Next item of business is the Rowland Street Residential Subdivision water supply. We've discussed this in the past, and as the board knows, in exchange for providing village water to this development, the developer is running a new water main from the village water tank on John Street all the way up Rowland Street for a distance of in excess of 2 miles. That's a water main that needed to be replaced. So we're getting it replaced at no cost to the village. And in exchange, we're allowing the development to sign up for village water as out of village residents. So that letter from our engineering company, which the board has received, outlines the various things that were done at our request to make sure that everything was up and coming. And the engineer is recommending that we approve the plan as it exists today. And that's contingent on the approval of Saratoga County DPW for the water main installation along Rowland Street, contingent on the approval of Saratoga County DPW for the village's long-term operation and maintenance of that water main, and contingent on the approval of the New York State Health Department of the water system design, all of which are in progress. So could I have a motion to approve the water service request?
So moved.
I'll make that.
Motion by trustee Raymond and second by trustee Fitzpatrick, I believe.
Yes, thank you.
Any discussion?
Yes, just an informational thing. The main runs up Rowland. Was there water service from the existing main to residences on Rowland?
We do have water districts in the town of Milton that are served by the existing main. That main is old and needs work, and the new main is both new and larger.
Okay, because sometimes there aren't folks who've been able to hook up previously, and they
Yeah,
can
hopefully.
with a new line. Yeah.
Hopefully this will improve the pressure, because some of those areas up there were suffering from fairly low water pressure. It was all legal, but it wasn't always great. Any other discussion? All in favor of the water service request, please say aye.
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 All opposed, nay. Next item of business is the revisions to Chapter 200 of our code, which is water and sewer law. Those of you who have been following this know that we've been discussing in the past mainly removing specific fees from all of our code and putting them on a fee schedule. The advantage to that to the village is we don't have to amend the local law in order to change a fee. And we change fees fairly regularly based on costs and supplies and demands and so forth. But it's a big major deal to change a local law because it has to be filed with the state and approved by all sorts of agencies and organizations. And it's very easy just to change a fee schedule. So this will be the first reading of the proposed revision to code chapter 200. I will set a public hearing for this change for our next meeting, which is December 14th. And at that time, any member of the public who wants to speak about any of these issues will have the opportunity. Copies will be available from the village clerk's office within the next couple of days. And in theory, I read this whole thing, but it's 5 pages long and most of it is just legalese and form. And so what I thought I would do instead, if no one objects, is just go through the key features of it. One change is that it specifies that all new water meters will be capable of being read out from outside the building. This will decrease the necessity of DPW to go into people's houses when it's necessary for them to read meters, although obviously they would still have to go in order to do any work on the meters. Another change in the current code is that if a water meter stops or fails to register, the property owner will be billed at the average consumption for the corresponding period of the previous year until such time as that water meter can be replaced. Water meters continue to be replaced by the village at no cost to the consumer unless there was some act of negligence on the consumer's part that led to the problem in the first place. And in addition, new water service outside the village will require those people to buy their own water meters. The village will supply them, but they'll pay for them. Probably the biggest single change in the new code is a fee for not reporting a meter reading. We send out meter cards twice a year. And we ask that people read their water meters and send the cards back to us so that we can generate the bills. And this revision to the code adds a fee that will be charged anytime a property owner does not report their meter reading during the designated time, which I believe is 30 days from the time the meter card goes out. I would add that if people are unable to read the meters, I know we have senior citizens and people with mobility issues. We will be happy to read those meters for them. All they need to do is call the village clerk and let her know that they need help. And that also is specified in this same section of the code revision. The next section basically just took the amounts. This next section is charges. And basically it just took the amount out of this and removed them to the fee schedule. So what will happen is the same thing that's been happening. That is, people who don't pay their bills within 30 days will have a 10% surcharge added. And after the next 30 days, they start into a schedule of 1% a month, which goes up to 1.5% a month after a certain number of months. So none of that is changing, but the law will no longer specify what the fees are. And that's everything I've got highlighted. So those are the basic changes to the current code, mainly just taking out the dollar amounts and adding the fee for not paying your, or not reading your meter.
One thing, Larry, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that, at least in my memory, not only, will we make allowances for people who have mobility or other issues with reading their own meters to come out and read them for them if they request, but the mayor has the ability to waive the fee in that instance, to ensure that, if somebody with a disability who doesn't have the ability to get down into their basement to read the meter, doesn't call the clerk to ask for help, the mayor still has flexibility to waive that penalty, correct?
That was the gist of our discussion on the matter, but that doesn't actually appear in the code, I don't believe. So it's not codified, but I certainly understand that that's the board's intention.
Well, I guess in order for you to have the power to do it, it's got to be in the law.
And I think Christine had pointed out that needs to be recorded somehow,
Right.
that person received, a waiver of the fee due to, and I don't remember what else you had said, Christine.
I had said that they that they put a statement in writing,
Okay.
that they're unable to, read their meter.
Yeah, and I think that serves two purposes. Clearly, one is, we want people to be honest about their abilities, but also hopefully will reduce the likelihood that certainly not this mayor, but maybe subsequent mayors give out waivers without sufficient justification.
Yeah.
So Councilor Ferradino, is that a fairly simple adjustment to make? And that would be to 200-20?
Yep, you've got a couple of other minor modifications that I'll make, and I'll add this one to it. I've taken some notes.
All right, none of this will change the
They won't change your timing of the public hearing.
Yeah. We have to have the final language available to the public 7 days ahead of the vote.
Yeah.
December 14th. So certainly these changes will be made and this will be available by December 7th, but I'm thinking it would be before that.
I would hope we would put, once the legislation is finalized, put it up on the web so people could review it easily without having to go into Village Hall.
Did the clerk make a note of that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, any other comments on the substance of the code? There's no vote tonight. I just had one other thing I wanted to mention. We've got a draft of the fee schedule for water and sewer. now that they've come out of the code. They are on the fee schedule. And I was just playing with numbers, as is my wont. And I remember that when the water rates were changed a couple of years ago, before my time, it was stated that the intention was so that people who use more and more and more water pay a higher rate. But I note that the base rate, which includes the first 30,000 gallons, if divided by 30,000 gallons, is $2.07.5. And 30,000 to 50,000 is $2.07. So we're actually not charging more for the second 20,000 gallons than we are for the first 30,000 gallons. Same is true for outside the village. And the same is true for sewer rates.
Yeah.
So,
That's fun. I mean, honestly, my memory is a little fuzzy, but I think Sean would probably back me up. I mean, that was not the graph that we were shown with respect to how these rates were going to be amended. I don't know whether the minutes are detailed enough from those old meetings to indicate what the board's resolution was with respect to how that fee structure was supposed to be amended. My concern is that the board voted for something and then it didn't actually end up getting operationalized in the billing.
Yeah. Those are the water rates are the ones that have been enforced since the change a couple of years ago. Where we,
No.
where it used to
the
decrease.
clear conversation back then, and I remember Bob standing up and giving, showing progressions of volume and rates does not comport with what you just said. So there's a disconnect somewhere.
okay,
Yeah, I would
we'll
agree
be happy
with that.
to ask the clerk to go back and look for those old minutes and see what we can glean from them. And we can always revise this schedule at any point easily enough, which is the reason we wanted to take these things out of the laws in the first place.
Yeah, and Bob probably has a clearer memory of that than I would, just given the level of detail with which he was involved.
Yep. I will ask him as well. Any other comments on the water before we move along?
Yeah. We received something this afternoon about the water service charges for multiple use. There was multiple use entities. I know we're not changing it in the law, but there was some analysis that was done, and looks like we're going to have to, at some point, look at the mixed use, commercial mixed use properties that are not. It's sort of working out that there's mixed use, and it's not. It doesn't look like it's tracking with what the amount of those entities could use or would be using. And also, there's something here where it looks like there's an error in billing. So when I think, how do we address that?
Well, I had raised the issue at our last meeting, I believe it was.
Yes,
that
you did.
we didn't have any different schedules for anything other than multiple family over 90 units. And it seemed to me we might want to have more distinctions than that. And I believe the communication you're referring to is something that Trustee Cormos put together and sent out that we received today. So we're probably not ready to do any substantive discussion of that, but I think it'll form the basis for our ability to look at that at a future meeting.
Yeah, I think that the main point was what Christine was saying is we have a fair number of, I just did an analysis on those properties that had 10 or more units, thinking, maybe we want to drop that 90 down to 10, or, maybe even down to 2 families. But there's like 300 of those. But, because of the mixed use there, it's not just an apartment building with maybe 12 units, but it also, many of them have retail or office use as well. And somehow if we're going to drop down to a lower level and make the rates more equitable, because as you had pointed out, that, you could have a 3-family house that's paying the same as a 1-family house, because of the small average usage that most single-family homeowners have, and we have that 30,000 minimum. So I think it needs more study to see the best way, and some review of the way other municipalities handle it. I know some municipalities have a different rate for commercial properties than they do for residential, generally higher to account for that. So, but as we all know, we've had a significant number of folks who have not reported. And, as was pointed out in the Revenue Committee, maybe we should wait until a lot more of the accounts are actually reporting, and then take a look at, what some changes might do. Also, there were some numbers that were in there that looked rather low for water consumption, and they might be broken meters. And, Bob could answer if that's the reason they were paying so little for like a 12-unit property that was paying, less than a single family pays. And then that could be a broken meter that still needs to be addressed. And then there actually are 3 properties in the village that are over 90 units, and one of them has not been billed correctly.
Okay, well, I will be happy to follow up on the questions for Mr. Kavanaugh. As you all know, he's been working very hard on straightening out our water accounts that are in arrears and that have issues. And we do have an ongoing list of meters that need to be checked and meters that need to be replaced. And we've been working on that as time allows. Of course, we got slowed down by the pandemic, and I didn't want people going into houses. But we're back on that now and making progress once again.
Speaking of pandemic overlay here, I guess I'm all for equity and I, to the extent that commercial rates need to be or multifamily rates need to be changed, we should do all of that. I wonder, we probably shouldn't be increasing local businesses' water rates right now.
Yeah, good point.
So, we may want to hold on that policy change to the extent it's going to have an impact on businesses until after we come out of the other side of this.
Yeah, that was the recommendation as well, is to hold on it and maybe wait 6 months, and hopefully things will be better for businesses, and we can take a look at making those rates more equitable.
So if the board would like, I would be happy to put a discussion item on our next agenda to discuss these data that was sent around earlier today. Or if you'd rather have us just put it off until a later date, we can do that too. Any thoughts?
I'm fine with next meeting.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
I'll put it on
And
there for discussion purposes only.
Yeah, and if there's any additional analysis that the board would like, I would be happy to put it together.
Yeah.
No.
And I think that this particular piece of information, obviously, Larry, you're going to share it with Bob so he can tell us why, some of this might be happening.
Yes.
What the status is of the meters and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Seems like every time
Okay.
we turn over a stone, we find something else.
Yes.
Indeed.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Moving along then, just one last reminder, there will be a public hearing on the revisions to Code Section 200 on December 14th at our next meeting. The next item of business is an agreement between the village and Dave Bush, our Chief of Police. Mr. Bush is retiring from the police force, and fortunately for us, I think, has agreed to come back after his retirement in a part-time capacity and continue the administrative duties of police chief. And so the board has reviewed the contract between the village and Chief Bush to accomplish that, which will be effective November 30th. And I would ask for a motion to approve that agreement.
So moved.
Motion by trustee Shaw. Is there a second?
I'll
Second.
second.
Second by trustee Raymond. Any discussion?
Just a, I won't say much, but, I think it's a real, it's a real benefit to the village to have Chief Bush's continuing service, and I will say, I think we should all be relieved that he's willing to continue on, the leadership that he provides and I think the comfort that all village residents take in knowing that he's at the helm for the police department is a big deal. So it's great that, he's going to stay on, but he doesn't have to, as he would say, chase those young kids around in the parking lot anymore. So.
Well, I certainly agree with those sentiments, and I'm sure we all do. And I would add that one of the conversations that the chief and I have had over and over and over again is the need for more written policies and procedures. And he has expressed the desire many times for enough time to work on things like that. And now I think he's going to have it. So that'll be good for the village and the police department.
Careful what he asks for there, Chief Bush.
Yeah.
Any further discussion?
Well, I've also been quite impressed. I've been listening in on the police policy procedure committee, and actually learned a lot about the police, and definitely agree with everyone else on Chief Bush. And they're talking about policies, and he'll now be able to have the time to address some of those, any issues that are brought up, policies that are needed.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Hearing no further discussion, all in favor of approving the agreement, please say aye. Aye.
All right.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. That motion carries. The next motion is more or less a housekeeping thing. It seems like every time we turn around, some bank wants a resolution saying that who the approved signatories are on the accounts, and that happens every time we open a new account. And now it's happening because the village is taking over an account that has been run by the library board and has been signed by the library board, but it's a village account, so the village needs to be responsible for it, and the treasurer is taking that responsibility. And we've talked to the library board and everything is all worked out, but now the bank needs a resolution showing that the treasurer and I are signatories. So what I did here is I just wrote a very broad resolution 2020-13, hereby resolved that Mayor Larry Woolbright and Treasurer Julia Smith are approved as official signatories on all bank accounts of the Village of Ballston Spa.
Can I just ask a question? Does it have to have the individuals' names? Because
It does.
it can't just be the positions?
Nope.
Okay.
I'll have to do it again.
I can tell you some stories about that. The village credit card is listed under my social security number. So that was the only way they'd do it. It's crazy. Anyway, I think this resolution will give me something that I can make a copy of and send to whatever bank needs it for whatever account. So could I have a motion to approve resolution 2020-13?
So moved.
I'll make that motion. Oh,
Motion by trustee Shaw, second by trustee Fitzpatrick. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 All
All
right.
opposed, nay. That resolution passes, and Treasurer Smith, I'm sorry, you are free to make a copy of that and forward it on to the bank with the other paperwork.
Got it.
The next item of business is the Christmas parade. The board has seen and reviewed an application from the Ballston Spa Business and Professional Association They're proposing to change the nature of the Christmas parade dramatically this year in response to the COVID pandemic. They think that it's probably a bad idea to have a lot of people gather downtown at Wiswall Park, but at the same time, they think that a lot of the youngsters probably really love to see a parade and flashing lights and so forth. And so what they're proposing is what they're calling a reverse parade, where a couple of fire vehicles and police vehicles will leave from Wiswall Park and travel through the neighborhoods. I believe that's starting at 6 o'clock on Friday, December 4th. And so kids can look out the front window or go out on their front lawn and watch the parade go by them instead of all going to the same place to watch the parade. So they've done all the paperwork. They've given us the forms. And I have spoken personally to Supervisors Lotnick in the town of Milton because the route does go briefly out of the village into the town. He's assured me that he has no issues with that. And the sheriff's department has agreed to provide escort for that part of the parade that's outside the village. So having said that, could I have a motion to approve the special event application by BSBPA for a holiday parade and tree lighting on December 4th?
Make that motion.
Motion by trustee Cormos. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by trustee Fitzpatrick. Any discussion?
Just an FYI, there will be a tree lighting ceremony, but you don't have to go down to Wiswall because they're going to be live streaming it. So you can watch at home and then go outside and greet Santa.
Thank you. Yes, that was not in the application, so I didn't think to mention it, but you're correct. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Reverse parade is approved. Next item of new business is approving the intermunicipal agreement with Saratoga County that allows parking, public parking on those two county lots as I described earlier in the meeting. We appreciate the county's cooperation in this. We think it'll help a lot, especially on special event times when we have a lot of people coming downtown, which hopefully we will have again one day. So thanks to the county for their cooperation in this. Could I have a motion to approve the intermunicipal agreement?
So moved.
Motion by trustee Shaw, second.
Second.
Second by trustee Cormos. Any discussion?
I just said, I think this is very forward thinking and a true sign of hope. So I think it's great that we're formalizing this for the future. And this is just so I understand, all this is not, we're able to use this space, but who clears these parking spaces? Who clears these parking lots for snow?
Yeah, the county.
Yeah, the county. Okay, all right.
Yeah, I'd like to see us do more shared parking. I know we have it with EOC, but I think there are other lots in the village where it may make sense and to
It's
look
great.
at shared because it's a more efficient use of without having to add parking spaces.
Well, as you know, I've been very happy to reach out to organizations that we've identified in this regard. So if you have ideas about other organizations, just let me know.
Yeah, I think it would be probably property owners, and I think we've stripped out the organizations. But, well, who knows? Maybe Elks or whatever, would allow use of their lot as well. There might be some more.
Okay. All in favor of the intermunicipal agreement, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. That motion carries. The next item is the consent agenda. There's 2 items on it this meeting. Does any trustee wish either of those items removed before we vote? In that case, can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Motion by trustee Shaw. Is there a second?
Second.
A second.
Second by
Yep.
trustee Raymond. He keeps beating you by a second every time.
think there's some lag in
Stop, he will too.
your audio, Christine.
It's because I'm coming through on my phone. That's why.
Okay, that's it. That's it. Any discussion? All in favor of the consent agenda, please say aye.
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 Any opposed, say nay. Consent agenda is approved. That brings us to trustee liaison reports. Does any trustee have a report to give the board tonight? Trustee Cormos.
Well, we had the first complete streets workshop, which I think a lot of you attended, and it was very successful. We had 44 attendees, and as the consultant said, I think only one person dropped off during the whole 2-hour presentation. I found it, very informative. There is an assignment to do a street audit. Actually, Christine and I went out and did a few intersections yesterday, and there's various questions to ask, and that gets sent into the consultant, and they will use that as part of the basis for the final workshop. It will be held December 3rd at 7 p.m. Now, anyone who is did not attend the first workshop is welcome to do a street audit and join in on the second. The person that you should email is Jim Levy at Planning for Places. The email is jlevy, Levy, at planning4places.com. And you can find that also on I believe the Facebook page. I'll get that to the information to Terry to put up on our Facebook page. And we welcome any folks who want to join in to join in the materials. The first session was recorded, so you can watch the whole first session. Second thing, Park and Tree Board is recommending the removal of some of the overgrown vegetation. There bushes on the north side of the library. We looked at it. Christopher Williams from Cornell Cooperative agrees, and so does Stacy, that these overgrown bushes prevent the light from getting in, and actually also have been a spot where people have spent the night, which is not something we want to encourage. There are some trees that need trimming. The library committee, reviewed, asked for the removal of these bushes and some trees. And Jeff took a look at it and said it's something that can be accomplished. And I don't know if we need to do a motion and vote on this, or is this something?
The board directed me to be able to
make
those calls.
Okay, so
if you'll get me that in writing, I will
okay,
take care of it.
I'll do that. And that's about it.
Okay, thank you. I have heard very good things about your Complete Streets workshop. I heard several people say positive things about it, so that was a nice contribution. Any other liaison reports tonight?
Larry, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Sean.
No, I've been stomping all over you. You go first.
I just wanted to, with reference to the library, while I was trying to get back into this meeting, Larry, did you mention about what happened on Thursday?
Yeah.
Yes, I did. I gave a pretty thorough explanation.
Okay, then I won't repeat that. The only thing I will say is that even on Thursday that the library is open, they still managed to have online story time, which was scheduled. And I really encourage people, they now have an online book club. So they're making, they're in full operation. The library is open and people can come in and they're welcome and they can use the computers for a specified amount of time, but there's always a lot of online things that they can do, including now they've established an online book club that's meeting the fourth Wednesday of every month at 3:00. So the library continues to be a very vibrant entity and probably touches on a weekly basis, more people in the village than and a lot of the other departments are able to do. So that's it.
Thank you. Trustee Raymond.
Yeah, just, I know we've had a lot of inquiries about the leaves. I know they've been, there's a lot of streets where they've been sitting around for a while. We've had some issues with the vac truck and, they've been working on that. They are trying to go through now with the front loaders and just scoop up what leaves they can, but obviously that makes it a much longer process. Speaking with Jeff, he hopes to have everything wrapped up by the second Friday in December. Obviously, there's some things going on with Christmas prep that are going to probably take him away, which is why he said it may take that long to clean up what's left. So just wanted to let everybody know it is happening and, bear with us.
Yeah, it was my understanding that they had completed an initial first round of the entire village and that what's out there now is mainly stuff in the early part of their circuit
Yeah.
that was placed after they came by.
Yeah,
So
I do know that we're
second round.
working today feverishly to clean up. So
Thank you. Yeah, it's important to get that stuff off the street before the snow flies, as we all know. Any other liaison reports? All right. We'll move on then to other business, and under other business, I scheduled a discussion tonight. The board has been talking informally about the need to revise our master plan, our comprehensive plan, which was done, I think, in 1993. And also, as many people are aware, our zoning code has sections that are pretty outdated and need to be revised. So how to do that and how the process goes and what we do when has been a topic of a lot of informal discussion. And I thought tonight maybe we could have some formal discussion and get some directions figured out. I'd like to start this discussion by asking Trustee Shaw to give us a summary. He has spent some time on the phone, I think, with each of the rest of us over the past couple of weeks and has a good sense, probably better than any of the rest of us, of where the board is as a whole in terms of how this process might go forward. So I'll turn it over to Trustee Shaw.
Well, thanks for setting expectations that I'll never be able to meet, but so the first thing to do, and I don't know, I missed last meeting, so maybe it was already done, but I think the first thing to do is to thank the ad hoc committee for the thoughtful report that they sent along. I'm sure that is going to serve as an important foundation, and we will continue to go back to that report as we move through the process. Lots of ideas and good sort of directional suggestions in there. I guess the board's task now is to take that document and the work, understand that this is going to be, a lengthy sort of multi-phase process, and think about how to take all of that information and those recommendations and feed it into something that can, that can really withstand, the process that we need to come up with a new comprehensive plan and a new zoning code for decades to come. So yes, Larry's right. I spent some time on the phone with various trustees. And I think, let's start with the baseline of what seems like, the principles that we all kind of agree on. One is that, before we do significant substantive changes to the zoning code, we need to have a comprehensive plan in place. We all agree on that kind of order of operations. We all agree that there are also a number of cleanup sort of housekeeping amendments that can be made to the zoning code for purposes of clarity in the near term. I don't think we need to go line by line in this meeting, but I think the board is open to the low-hanging fruit stuff that needs to be cleaned up just for the sake of clarity, but that isn't necessarily dependent on bigger, broader planning initiatives. Obviously, we don't want to do anything that will stand in the way of future decisions from a planning point of view, but to the extent there are housekeeping items to fix, we should do that soon. I think we all agree that the comprehensive plan needs to be put together by a committee like the ad hoc committee, probably with a lot of the same members, but also representing probably additional constituencies in the village. So, you know, I think one of our to-dos coming out of this is to identify the right members of that sort of, I don't know what we'll call it, comprehensive planning committee. That's different, obviously, from the planning board, but that has its own scope and charge, and that represents, you know, obviously business interests, residents, you know, a very broad scope of the different sort of folks in the village who care about these issues. I think the next thing that we all agree on is that this comprehensive planning committee is going to need support from a consultant. The consultant, the scope of the consultant, I think, is to be sort of refined, but I think we all agree that we don't want to ask this consultant to do a bunch of stuff that's already been done, right? The Saratoga Prosperity Partnership folks in their economic development plan put together a lot of the information that is going to serve the basis for some of that work. This Complete Streets group and the other work that Liz and Larry and others are doing with the Capital District Planning folks, all of that output is going to have an overlap with what you would ask a consultant to do if they were just starting from scratch. So we want to make sure that the scope of work for a consultant is as narrow as possible, frankly, to save money, but also, you know, to not be going around the same trees that we've gone around before and asking our residents to answer a bunch of questions that they've already answered, and, you know, make all of us go to a bunch of meetings that we've already gone to. So, so I think, you know, I think that's the sort of foundation and what we all agree on. And I think the to-do items from here are to, you know, spend the next period of time, and I'll kind of let Larry define what that period of time is, because I'm not sure I have religion about it. Identifying the committee and setting up the charge. And then simultaneously, you know, starting with sort of the broad scope of what the consultant would do, and then picking away at that scope and, you know, crossing a lot of stuff off that's already been done, and then bidding that out and looking at the numbers that come back and making sure that, you know, we're planning for it appropriately from a budget point of view. I think that the consensus is that we should be able to hire somebody quite competent to do a scope of work along the lines of what we're thinking, especially to the extent they're going to be sort of, you know, advising this committee, and the committee is going to be doing its own work, right? I mean, it's not going to be just sitting around waiting for somebody to tell it what to think. So the, you know, the committee members will be doing some of the sort of blocking and tackling, but, you know, we should be able to find a consultant who can do the scope of work that I think we think is appropriate for somewhere in the like $20,000 to $50,000 range at the highest. So I think, you know, coming out of the sort of thought process, and having looked at the ad hoc committee's report, which I think served two functions for me anyway, I'll just speak for myself. One was to be incredibly thankful that we've got so many committed people who put so many detailed and well-formed thoughts on a piece of paper, but also sort of reminded me anyway of the scope and the breadth and the depth of the work that needs to be done, and the need for, you know, something that's going to not only make sure that we're turning over every rock and putting things in place in an orderly way, but frankly also, you know, withstand the kind of credibility test, right? I mean, because when you do something like this, part of it is making sure that developers and other folks who want to make investments in the village see that this process was, you know, done in a sort of, you know, a business-like and very fulsome way. So that's it. That's my speech, Larry. I hope I conveyed it accurately as you see it. And I think we've got a couple to-do items over the course of the next month, and then we can really start running along, with this in
Thank
the new
you
year.
very much. Noah, that was good. We appreciate it. I think that was a good synthesis. I would only add to it that Trustee Cormos and I earlier today had a meeting with representatives from the Capital District Regional Planning Commission and the Capital District Transportation Committee. Those two organizations have a joint program that offers technical assistance to municipalities in developing comp plans. And we laid out to them pretty much the same process that we just heard from Trustee Shaw, including the fact that we've got the economic development with all its public input, and we've got the CDTC linkage program in the works right now that's going to address transportation, walking, bicycling. And we talked to them about their ability to provide some help with this transitional stuff that you were just talking about. That is defining what we still need, helping to figure out what the scope of work is for a consultant. And they have forwarded to us, and I will be happy to forward to the board. We just got it this afternoon, so I didn't do it yet, but some application materials. Their applications are due by December 30th, which sort of works perfectly for our time frame that we're looking at. And I think that offers another opportunity to get some people with some experience helping us fine tune these ideas. And as Noah suggested, bring down the scope of work for a consultant to a manageable level that we can actually afford at no cost to the village.
Mhm. Yeah.
So I might just ask the board one question. We've got the economic development plan that was just completed. It had public input from a variety of means from many, many people, probably a total of 500 plus, which is a pretty good representative of the village. And then we've got the linkage program, that's the linkage grant that's going to be planning for transportation, foot traffic, bicycle traffic needs. What other big pieces are we going to need to provide the committee that's working on the comp plan?
I could answer that. The main piece that's missing is land use. We have transportation, we have economic development, but the sort of heart of a comprehensive plan is, how do you want to use your property? How do you want to zone that property? Our current zoning, probably except for the historic district and somewhat the central business district, otherwise is very sort of typical suburban zoning. And as the new chair of the zoning board, Anna Stanko, pointed out, that if this village was flattened, you couldn't rebuild 60% of it the way it looks now. And I think I can say with some confidence that people like the way it looks now and would like it to continue to have the kind of form and feel and historic flavor. And frankly, our zoning code does not ensure that. So what we really need is to, not do general surveys, but get down to some of the specifics of what people want to see in the village over the next 5 to 10 years, because that's the length of, that the comprehensive plan would probably cover. And, do they want to see more design guidelines or even design regulations that would determine how a building looks? We really don't have anything in our code that does that, or maybe they don't. It's getting to those specific questions, and it's looking at existing conditions from the eyes of a professional planner, who will look at what we have now and then make suggestions. I think that's what we really need. Whether we want to add other aspects to the comprehensive plan, I don't think they're as critical as the land use.
Let me ask you a question while we're on this subject. I've got written on my notes next to the technical assistance stuff that we were talking about this afternoon, land use visioning, but I can't remember whether I wrote that down because they identified that as something that they could help with, or if I wrote that down because they identified it as something that
Should be covered, I think.
should be
Yeah.
covered by the consultant.
Right, because they said they would help us, decide the scope of the work, but and what needs to be asked of the public, of our stakeholders, but they're not going to actually do it. That would be the job of the consultant to gather that information, to do it very similar to way the economic development survey through potentially a survey, but the focus groups, etc. That same methodology is going to be used in the linkage grant. We're going to reach out to people and talk to them about, do you want a bike lane on, here? Show them designs, show them, examples. I think that's one of the more important things that will occur with a professional who brings in ideas and concepts from around the country that may be useful, to us.
Do you think people are going to get tired of us hiring consultants to ask them questions and send them surveys over and over again?
Well, as long as, I think there may be an opportunity, depending on the timing, to combine the work of the transportation linkage grant with this process. So we only go out one more time asking about transportation and land use at the same time.
That would be good.
We can try to be more efficient on it. But a lot of what they'll do is look at the existing conditions. What are the setbacks in this village? In the older established part, maybe we need to refine our setbacks to reflect those. That would be an example. So they're going to spend the first few months gathering information.
I think it's going to be, hopefully, it will surely be a little bit of time, right, before anybody's going back to residents and business owners for more input. And I agree, we're going to have a little bit of a project on our hands to make sure that we're not kind of making people feel like we're asking the same questions, even if we aren't. It's still going to feel like the same kinds of questions. And ensuring that people understand, and really being targeted about the extent to which we need to do this on a broad base, right? I don't think we need to do a survey of the entire village again. So how do we make sure that it's targeted and very clear in terms of its purpose? I'm confident that if we do that, especially given the passage of time, we'll get the responses we need, but we just need to be incredibly tailored about it.
I think also it's part of the process to be very open, all the meetings are open, and then the public that, does have an interest in this, they can come and provide their input, as well as, surveying the population, that we hear the different voices, and they're not all going to agree. Comprehensive plans and particularly zoning can be contentious.
Patrick.
Can we set a goal? Sorry. Oh, Christine, sorry.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, I understand that there's a concern about doing this kind of survey thing, that people get over-surveyed. But my observation is that every time we do something, we get more participation. And I think that is a testament to the way the village has been running in the last couple of years, that people are much more willing to step forward. We have people who are willing to volunteer to be alternates on committees. We have more than 30 people who wanted to be involved in the Complete Streets piece. So I think that people are getting, and people never mind. I don't think people ever mind being asked their opinion. They want to tell you what they think. And I think that what I observe is that as we do it, people are getting used to it, and they'll be more involved and more engaged. You know, I think the engagement level is much higher than I've ever seen it. And I think that that's in my 30 plus years living here. And I think that's excellent.
Wise words from Trustee Fitzpatrick, as usual. I'm wondering whether we can set a goal that, I mean, Larry, you always want to move faster than everybody else, but I'm thinking the first meeting,
that's because I'm older than everybody else.
first meeting in January to name the committee and approve an RFP for a consultant. How do you think?
I think I was going to suggest that people get me nominations for committee members between now and our next meeting, maybe.
Okay.
And then Trustee Cormos and I can follow up with, I don't know, if the planning process, the technical assistance process can't start until January, then we might not be ready to hire a consultant in January.
Yeah.
Do you think we can do a scope though? I mean, could we write an RFP?
I mean, I could take a shot. I looked at a lot of them and looked at a lot of comp plans. So, you know.
Yeah, I was just wondering if, given the economic development plan and then the aid from the Regional Planning Commission and the CDTC, is there a way that we can take what we have and use them basically as filters to find out what we don't have? And that would kind of outline our scope for the RFP.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's exactly what we've been talking about.
Right.
It's just a matter of like taking the, you know, the universal set of stuff that has to happen, looking at what we've already done, taking all of that off the list, and then drafting an RFP that only has those items that are still to be done in it. I mean, I'm oversimplifying, but like that's the general task here. I'm just wondering whether we can go through that exercise between now and, you know, the beginning of January, so we can get something out on the street.
What do you say, Larry? I mean, with the timing, because they were going to help us with that.
Oh, I see. Yeah,
Yeah.
Listen, if it has to be later in January, I'd rather get it done right than fast.
Yeah. I mean, I
Okay.
think, you know, on the committee, I think we can, you know, I think we need agreement on the types and numbers of folks before we make suggestions of individuals. I liked very much the, you know, the off-street parking committee. You know, it had 2 members from the planning board, 2 from the zoning board, 2 residents, 2, you know, actual businesses, retail type businesses, and let's see, 2 businesses and 2 local developers. And, you know, the local developers were very helpful in, you know, telling what they would like to see. I don't think you should make your developer necessarily the chair of the comprehensive plan committee, but their input was valuable. I'd rather have somebody that, you know, has no potential to gain by what comes out of the you know, the plan. So maybe a resident. But that's, you know, and then I think, I don't know if we had on that committee, but in the, you know, the other committees, economic development, we also had representation from, you know, the community organizations. But at least, you know, that kind of a profile is, you know, I think is important. You got to have some, not building owners that would be more like the developers, but an actual business person who's, you know, selling on Front Street or on Milton.
I personally think that to be effective, a committee needs to be fairly small.
I disagree. Because if you have 2 of every kind, if one doesn't show up, then you've still got the representation. Not everybody's going to make every meeting. And if you have too small a committee, you lose 1 or 2, it's a big piece of the pie.
I think that depends, honestly, Larry, I think it depends on the chair. You know, I think it depends on how well the chair runs the meetings, how well the agendas are constructed, how well the goals and sort of output that's expected from the various members is defined. I have seen large committees work very, very well and really get the benefit of all the different people at the table. I've also seen them be total disasters because, you know, people are running in 14 different directions and the work is kind of disjointed. So I think it just depends on, you know, who's on the committee and who's running the show and how strong they are. It'll be up to us, I think, to make sure that the chair of the committee is going to keep things in line. On balance, I'd rather see, you know, at least 7 or 8 people. I mean, I don't know how you get full representation from the different constituencies in the village without categories of at least 3 or 5 different, you know, sort of groups. And I think, you know, we gotta make sure that there's nobody out there who's going to basically say, hey, there's nobody on this committee that who was representing, you know, my point of view.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. You know, you kind of need a diverse coalition of people that represent, you know, the different aspects of the village. I would say even 10 people, it would be fine, you know.
And really that committee is not, quote, doing the work. That's what you hire the consultant to do. And, you know, if we work with the transition grant to CDTC, they expect, you know, some in-kind work, which, you know, consists of the time people spend on that committee. But there's also, you know, I have the same demographic sources, Prosperity Partnership. And so, you know, if the committee along with the consultant needs a certain analysis of building permits or demographic data, you know, they just need to tell me and I can produce it and save, you know, the cost of a consultant doing that. We think, at least Shelby thinks, and I think Larry agrees, that I don't think we've talked to them, the county can produce some of the mapping. You know, mapping is a big part of a comprehensive plan. So that will take that, you know, rather, you know, can be time consuming and expensive off of the consultant's list of to-dos. They let us know, you know, what kind of maps we work with the county to get them produced. So those sorts of things, gathering data about the village that the consultant can analyze. You know, I'm willing to go chasing down information, you know, that the village may have.
So with a regional planning commission, essentially we apply and then they would provide somebody to help us develop an outline, I would say, so we would be better knowledgeable about writing an RFP. Is that the gist of it?
Yeah. And I think one of the key things in the comprehensive plan is really initially, they call it a visioning exercise, you know, and that I think, you know, run by a professional, you know, is really sets the basis for the whole plan. You know, and since the time I've lived here, I've heard what individuals say is their vision of Ballston Spa. And I think, you know, we just need to articulate it and make sure that all those stakeholders agree with it. But I keep hearing the same thing. You know, we like mixed use. We like the character of this village. We don't want the character to change. We want new development and new business, but we don't want to change the local, you know, the flavor of having local businesses. We don't want to, you know, see national chains open up shop on Front Street. You know, I think that's what I've been hearing. And I think, you know, we can get to a vision pretty quickly.
Sounds like we have a plan, Larry.
You think?
Yep.
I mean,
So is that-
everybody's got a plan until you get punched in the face, right? Isn't that what Mike Tyson said?
Does that plan include the technical assistance grant?
Yeah,
Will you take the lead on that,
sure.
trustee Cormos?
Oh, you want me to write it?
No, all you. Over to you, Liz.
No, no, you can have it. You can have it if you want it,
That's
Noah.
If trustee Shaw will do it, that would be great.
Liz and I will work together on it. I'll take whatever I can off your plate, Liz.
Okay,
I will forward that stuff to everybody just so you can see what we've got.
it's not too bad,
Okay.
the application.
And I would ask that by next time, you think seriously of the composition of the committee that we're going to appoint. I personally think that we don't necessarily accomplish what we want to accomplish by making a list of groups and checking them off, because I don't think two residents, no matter who they are going to represent the diverse views of the 5,000 people in the village. And I don't think that two business owners, regardless of who they are going to represent all of the diverse interests of business owners. So
You're absolutely right. It shouldn't be formulaic. It should just be as inclusive as possible, I guess is the better way to put it.
So that was what I was thinking when I suggested that you think up individuals who would be good at it, and let us take a look at the individuals as opposed to making a list of boxes to check.
Well,
It's not an either or
Just gotta
proposition.
make
You can do both. I mean, you
Yeah.
want to make up a list of individuals who represent the broadest swath of the village. And, you know, I don't know if you get there with like 5 people. I don't know if you can. That's the point.
All right, I'm
Yeah.
trying to come up with a task to assign you for our next meeting, to assign you, the board, for our next meeting. I've suggested that you come up with a list of people. I've suggested that you come up with a list of groups.
No, it's people.
Larry?
Everybody's going to come up with nominations, and then, you know, we'll submit our nominations to you, Larry, and then we can deliberate, I suppose, at the next meeting with respect to, you know, the size of the committee based on the quality of the people that are proposed and, you know, what we're thinking its charge is going to be. And then hopefully, you know, approve the committee either at that meeting or the next one.
Mhm. Larry, would it be your intention to, you know, take the folks that are on, you know, were on your ad hoc and have them represent, you know, I mean, you have, I believe, one person from one or two from zoning.
2 from zoning, 2 from planning.
Well, you had one that isn't able to
Right.
continue. So
No, I have not asked them to work on comp plan. I've asked them to work on zoning.
okay, so it's a,
There might be some overlap. I mean, I wouldn't care if there were overlap, but that's.
okay, I just didn't know if you wanted those folks to be also on the, you know, as the representatives of planning and zoning but
My suggestion was that they continue on a future committee to revise the zoning regulations when we get to that point. And I wouldn't mind having them go ahead and get started on the housekeeping part that Noah was talking about while we're doing the comp plan stuff. But
Okay.
any overlap between the 2 groups would not be by my design.
Okay, well, I just
I
don't
agree there.
want to overload folks to have them working on the housekeeping, zoning, and then also asking them to, you know, because the timing of a comp plan is highly dependent on the frequency that the committee meets.
Yep.
Well, here's a question on the housekeeping items. You know, I wonder whether based on just the ad hoc committee's report, which was detailed, and I think a lot of the items listed there were, you have to do a little bit of parsing, but I think you can sort of identify the stuff that needs to be fixed just for the sake of clarity and kind of the workability of the code. I mean, I wonder whether just based on that document, Stephanie could put together basically a proposed list of updates to the zoning code that are not, you know, not about like big strategic, you know, sort of changes, but just definitions and.
She already did. She this process started with her going through the code and making a list of what needed attention. And then that's what the committee primarily looked at. But I think they had a lot of ideas, of specific ideas, that I asked them not to include in the report because I didn't want them spending the next year writing this long, detailed report. I didn't think that was the nature of the process we were in right now. I wanted a big picture analysis of where we are with the code.
Okay.
But given the opportunity, I think they would be happy to go ahead and continue to work on.
Yeah, I'd really, look to Stephanie to take that report and parse it for us and say, this is what that committee will work on. And these are the more housekeeping corrections to the code, et cetera, that don't really traverse the territory of what will be covered in a comprehensive plan. I don't know.
I don't get the sense that the revisions that need to happen to the code, it's not like, gee, there are 10 things that need to be fixed. There was not a page on the code that didn't need to be rewritten. Not one page out of 100. I mean, my markups, it was redlined through page after page after page. And I don't feel like there's one thing where we're like, ooh, we just keep coming up against this over and over. It's literally the whole code. Just.
Well, I mean, I don't know that that's a reason not to do it. I mean, maybe the housekeeping is like, one of the, it's like the $500 thing that you pay for the first time somebody comes in to do like the entire house, and like it's like with ammonia and peroxide and whatever.
It's the
my
whole
point is
code.
that just because it's a lot doesn't mean that we shouldn't do it. I mean, I think this comprehensive planning process and the changes to the zoning code that are going to follow the comp plan, I mean, that process is going to take like at least a year, right? I mean,
But if you take a stab at changing just the definitions, let's just say we clean up our definitions, and then you come through with a comp plan that identifies something completely different, you'll have wasted that entire time that you've spent.
Well, that's my point, but that's exactly what I said at the beginning, which maybe I was saying things in theory and they don't actually translate to practice, and you tell me if that's right. Are you saying that there are no housekeeping items that we can do now that are worth doing in this interim period and won't end up having to be completely changed all over again when we do the comp plan?
I think it is in such a state that when you start looking for, let's just pick the 10 things that are the highest priority, you're going to find 75 more.
Yeah.
I think it's as easy as saying, okay, this one thing is broken. The entire code is broken. It's difficult to understand. The language is tedious. It doesn't necessarily track the law. I mean, so
maybe those we should look at. If anything does not track the law, that should probably be, corrected. The other thing I thought, is the whole process that's outlined in the zoning code of how somebody goes through approval processes. Would that be worth maybe, taking a look at? Because that is.
Yeah, that would not require comp plan guidance.
Yeah. So that's right. What I was thinking of, the approval processes. I know the committees are starting on forms, to make it easier for somebody who wants to apply for a variance to provide the right materials instead of showing up with half of what they need and having to come back the next month. That's what I was thinking of. Anything that's not to the law, the process, anything else that you can think of, that's, probably they could be working on that. But it sounds like from what your assessment of our zoning code is, we need a complete rewrite. There's not much in what's there now that we want to say.
Well, I think the truth lies somewhere in the middle.
Okay.
So let's draw this to a close. It's been very productive, and I think we've all had an opportunity to think about a lot of things that we probably need to think more about. And let's say that by the next meeting, Noah and Liz are going to get a start on the application for technical assistance, and everybody's going to get me a short list of people you think should be considered for the comprehensive plan committee. And I will talk to the ad hoc zoning committee and get their input onto this last discussion we've been having about whether it's productive for them to be continuing to do stuff during the interim period. And then at our next meeting, we'll have another discussion. We'll talk about size, whether we've covered all the bases in terms of the representative groups, and perhaps be in a position to move forward with adding a couple of people to the ad hoc zoning committee and making it no longer ad hoc, and maybe giving them a specific charge for what sorts of things to pay attention to. Does that sound workable?
Yes.
I'll put it all in an email
Okay.
and send it out to you. All right, thank you very much. Next item of business is public comment. If you would like to make a comment, just raise your hand and I will call on you. I see that there are already questions in the, well, okay. I'm gonna recognize Mark Bleck first for public comment because it appears that he had sent some questions earlier in the meeting that I will let him address now publicly. So Mark, give your name and address, please, and you should be able to speak.
Mark Black, 10 Thompson Street. I just, when you talked about parking, I was wondering if we could utilize some of the church parking if we needed. They seem to be centrally located. And I also wanted to talk about the marketing plan and how that would work in conjunction with the master plan. And if, you know, what's going on with creating that sort of, you know, a marketing plan also.
Are you talking about the branding effort?
Well, the branding effort is one part of a marketing plan. When you're talking about creating a master plan to attract people, part of that is how we're presenting ourselves to the community, to the community outside the village. You know, as Liz said, do we like if we like the buildings and the style of village that we have now, is there, you know, how do we communicate that through a marketing plan to prospective developers, to visitors to the village? It seems that the two have to sort of work together to make the village a success.
Okay.
I think once we get to that visioning exercise and reach a consensus on the vision, then that will give the material that you need to put into a marketing plan. You know, that will be useful for marketing
Yes.
the village. You know, there might be something different than what we've got now.
I also think that the name comprehensive plan is a little bit of a misnomer. I mean, it's not comprehensive in the sort of universal sense, Mark. I think if you look at comprehensive plans, you know, capital C, capital P from other municipalities, you'll see that mostly they're about, you know, they're about land use, they're about zoning, they're about sort of transportation, you know, sort of the physical resources of the municipality and how what the long-term uses of them should be. But I think your point is really good, which is that, you know, next to that, and, you know, building on the economic development study that we got out of Saratoga Prosperity, we need this marketing plan, which I agree is more than a branding effort, but I think it's not necessarily the kind of thing that falls within the committee that we were just talking about that will do the sort of comprehensive land use plan.
So add it to the to-do list. Thank you, Mark. I'm going to recognize Donna Dardaris now, who's got her hand up. Donna, you're allowed to talk. I think you, yeah, there you go.
Yes. Hi, Donna Dardaris, 64 Middle Street. As many of you know, I am a trustee of the Saratoga County History Center, better known locally as Brookside Museum. I'm sure it's no secret to anyone on the call that we have had a very rough year. We had problems before there was ever a pandemic, but through the hard work of many, many people, we are starting to see some light ahead of us. And one of the brightest spots is that we opened our artisan market this year. It's our 20th anniversary, and in celebration, the BSBPA is going to do a ribbon cutting for us to honor the 20th anniversary of the artisan market this coming Saturday at 10:45 a.m. And I just wanted to extend an invitation to the mayor, all of the people on the town board, and everyone else that's on the call to come to our ribbon cutting. It's going to be outside on the front porch. We're going to require masks, social distancing, everything else. The BSBPA did this for us at the last minute, and I'm just so excited, and our vendors are so excited that we're able to do this year. And so that was it. I just wanted to invite everyone to come if they're able.
Okay, thank you very much. I see Ray Otten. You're on, Ray.
Okay, thank you. Just wanted to throw out a couple shameless plugs, as I've been known to do before. As part of the reverse parade, one of the vehicles that we're putting in is going to be a Toys for Tots collection vehicle. So if we can get the word out to anybody that you know that's going to be on the route once that gets published, that we will be accepting donations for Toys for Tots. That is a program that's still going on this year, even through the pandemic, and we are struggling with it. We also are accepting donations for that up until December 12th at the Community Emergency Corps building on Thompson Street. So if you have any urges to buy some toys for kids, just drop them off at our place. The second thing I just want to make mention of is that as of Wednesday, we will be having, the Rotary Club will be having its tree lot open down at Curtis Lumber. So from then until we sell out, trees are basically going to be $55. There may be some bigger ones that are a little bit more, but come on down if you want a live tree, or actually I guess they're dead trees that used to be alive. Come on down, and they're coming from Bob's Trees. So again, they're local, supporting local business. And you know that all the money we make goes back into the community to help people in need. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ray. I don't know if BSBPA has already thought about this, but if they wanted to give us a blurb about the reverse parade for us to put on the website and the Facebook page, we'd be happy to do that.
I'll be in touch with them tomorrow. How's that?
And it could include a plug for your Toys for Tots thing as well.
Very good.
Okay.
Will do. Thanks.
Let's see. I need to scroll through so I can see everybody. I see Ben Baskin hand raised. I unmuted you, Ben.
Hello, everybody. Thank you. I think it's great you're intending to do a community planning process. The village is overdue for one. And as far as the Central Planning Committee, I agree. You could easily have 10 people on a committee, and I don't think it would be too large. I think even more important is what the committee does in terms of structuring the process. And I think it's really important to reach out and involve as many people in the community through the process as possible. So whether it's, most, I guess, familiar to me is the Ballston, town of Ballston planning process. And they did a very good job with workshops and public hearings and surveys. So that went way beyond the central steering committee. And, part of that is to make sure you get all the input that you want to make sure it's a good plan and reflects the community well. And then also a big part of that is to make sure that the community has ownership over the plan and accepts the plan as legitimate and representative of who they are. So I think that's important to just bring as many diverse people into the process, if not the steering committee itself. As we all know, where the rubber hits the road is in the laws and the zoning and the codes that come out of the comprehensive plan, or at least should come out of the comprehensive plan. And so I'm glad to hear that you're going to change that ad hoc committee to a formal committee that will be open to public input and public review, and because that'll be very important ultimately. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks, Ben. Let me scroll through again and see if we have any other hands. I see Frank Rossi, you're unmuted.
Hi, Mayor. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, Frank Rossi Jr., 63 Saratoga Avenue, Apartment B. Also, SPA. Committees are great, but I just want to make sure that, the last time I witnessed a committee in the village was during, I believe it was the Revenue Committee's discussion about the water rates, sewer rates, and what was a clear mandate from that committee became basically a veto from Trustee Cormos without much explanation. I think if we're going to marry ourselves to committees, then we need to also follow what their recommendations are, or if we're not going to have some good reasoning for doing it. I was very appalled at how basically we wasted a committee's time just to, say that they weren't furthering our agenda at the end of the day and vetoing it in that manner. So if we're going to have committees, let's stay dedicated to what the committees are going to tell us at the end of the day. Thank you.
Thank you, Frank.
If I may comment, I made it very clear that my opinion was different than the committee, and the committee made its recommendations, and I do not have veto power. The decision was made by the board as a whole.
Okay, I'm going to scroll through one more time, and I don't see any other hands up. So I will end the public comment session. I want to thank the 5 people who spoke, and I also want to thank the 15 people who attended the meeting with us. It's a good turnout. We appreciate it. We're always happy to see people. The more people who know what's going on in the village, the better off it is for all of us. So thank you very much. Could I have a motion, please, that, and I wanted to say, everybody have a happy Thanksgiving. I know that we can't all get together with as many people as we would like to this year. And a lot of us will not be seeing family members that we would love to see this year. But I hope that you all have a restful, relaxing time and that you enjoy the holiday as best you can. Could I have a motion that vouchers number 21-00795 to 21-01019 be audited and the meeting adjourned?
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Trustee Fitzpatrick. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Trustee Cormos. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Thank you, everyone. Meeting is adjourned.
Happy
Thank you,
Thanksgiving.
Larry. Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.